Greetings and salutations, this is Brian from Mechbladestudios. When Shin Godzilla came out back in 2016, the premise of a grounded, sober reboot of a tokusatsu property sounded rather familiar, right down to the nomenclature and the nightmarish redesign. The film I was thinking of was actually called Shin Kamen Rider. Kamen Rider, the one-man army sister franchise to Super Sentai. Guy transforms into an armored bug-looking dude using a belt, and more recently whatever collectible gimmick that year's iteration pushes, rides a motorcycle and kicks some kaijin ass. Pretty straightforward. Originating in 1971, this franchise is quite the long runner. It's split between the early Showa era, the recent Heisei era, and the incoming Reiwa Era. Now if you look at all these riders, you can see the general motif I outlined a few seconds ago, but if you put them all in a line, you'll notice one egregious outlier. One that looks like a kaijin himself. This one's named Shin, the star of the first of the films from the lull between the Showa and Heisei eras, Shin Kamen Rider Prologue. As the very first shot of the film denotes, Shin Kamen Rider is a reimagining of the character created to celebrate the franchise's 20th anniversary. It was actually written by series creator Shotaro Ishinomori, so it's not like it's a soulless, missed-the-point reboot made by some other studio. The cinematography is varied. Most of it is shot fairly normally, so normally that you'll forget what movie you're watching, but a few non-fight shots stick out here and there. Like this scene with the grasshoppers. Regular gunfights are fine for the most part, and the few toku fights we get are pretty solid, though the early dream sequences we get have Shin doing this very odd-looking jump, often while we watch his actions in yellow vision. The effects work comes from one of the best times in toku history, before dodgy CGI invaded Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Godzilla, and so on in the early 2000s. So you're probably wondering, where's Shin's belt or driver? He doesn't have one. Excusing the seemingly out of order editing, holy shit. Bizarrely though, in the same film we get Lurch here ripping off his very obvious latex covering, and one more effect I'll talk about in the plot section. The suits themselves are quite excellent. The grasshopper elements are quite apparent here, but what I really find to be cool is that the exoskeleton looks like proper armor. An interesting feature is the pulsating eyes and head. Good luck trying to sleep tonight. The android mutant thing looks like a standard toku bad guy. Not bad at all, but when your film's hero looks like this, you gotta try a bit harder with a villain. The soundtrack is rather ponderous, though some interesting electronic bits find their way in there. Louder songs, for whatever reason, play during moments that don't warrant it at all. The story follows Shin Kazumatsuri, a test subject at the Super Science Institute. He's undergoing tests for his father's subject to help humanity by strengthening cells. Secretly, though, other members of the organization have their own plans for the experiments. One scientist, Onizuka, has experimented with grasshoppers and their telepathic properties, while others have more sinister ideas. Shin has been having nightmares of being a bug-like monster killing people while jumping about. Shin investigates the organization to try to find out why he's having these dreams and what exactly is being done to him in the lab. He also happens to be dating one of the nurses, Ai. The CIA, meanwhile, has an interest in shutting down the organization. For the entire first half of the film, that's the long and short of it. Just Shin lurking around places he isn't supposed to, or talking to Ai or other acquaintances. It just looks like a spy thriller with a science edge with shock red blood. Spoilers ahead, you know the drill. The film picks up in the second half, but then gets betrayed by that last word in the title, Prologue. It turns out that the organization running the experiments also clandestinely runs a lot of Japan in general and is using this research to develop mutant cyborgs. It's a shocker in all but name. Shin, despite having a vicious fighting style and an appearance only a mother can love, is able to restrain himself around allies, resulting in this. This isn't even a bad scene. I think it's actually really well done. But if you take one step back and look at this scene in a vacuum, you have to admit it's pretty funny. Ai gets captured by the organization along with Professor Kazumatsuri in an attempt to get them to tell them where Shin is. The boss reveals that Ai is pregnant with Shin's mutant child, giving us this. Shin goes to war with the organization, finally snapping and transforming when the boss shoots Ai to apparent death. He fights the cyborg guy in a pretty cool fight, ending in a Sub-Zero fatality. Shin escapes with his father and Ai, but they get recaptured, but a CIA lady that Shin protected earlier frees them by blowing up the helicopter, killing the professor and sparing Shin. Ai is apparently dead, but meanwhile we still get the Deus Ex Machina Peapod baby appearing at the end. It just spins, and spins, and spins, and spins. Shin carries Ai through a tunnel, a bounty is placed on the head of the masked rider, the end. Characters are hard to talk about because they're all very one note. Shin is very curious and cares about those around him to the point where he's very forgiving of those that hurt him, but won't stand for people that hurt his friends. They pay dearly. Onizuka is revealed to be the creature killing people at the beginning before dying in a fire before Shin's transformation. Shin's perception that he himself was the killer came from the telepathic connection. Said connection caused Shin to transform, but Shin's willpower meant that he wouldn't become a killer. Ai feels guilt for working for the organization, thus bringing harm to Shin. Shin's father is just a reasonable researcher, the boss is just a dick, and the cyborg is just a monster. Overall, I give the film a 6 out of 10. No points are taken off for departures from the source material because that was the intent of the project. In fact, this was meant to be an adaptation of Ishinomori's original vision for Kamen Rider, so in a way, this is closer to the source material than any of the traditional writers. There are a lot of neat ideas in this, but the pacing betrays it, starting very slowly and not clearly showing the writer until halfway through. The Prologue designation screwed it over because, yes, this whole film feels like a huge Act 1. A follow-up was discussed, but Ishinomori's passing and general lack of interest meant it never happened. The acting is decent, the music is rather unique, and the effects are mostly good with a few off effects here and there. And even if the execution felt somewhat lackluster, a lot of neat concepts are introduced. If nothing else, it's the most unique entry to the Kamen Rider franchise, and for that alone, I recommend checking it out. If you want slightly more traditional fare, go for Kamen Rider the First and Kamen Rider the Next. So that's it for me for now. What do you guys think? Have you seen Shin Kamen Rider? Do you think this series would have worked? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, leave a like and subscribe for more reviews of anime, video games, and movies. Also hit that bell icon so you know exactly when a new video goes up, and share this video with somebody that might find it helpful. Thanks for watching. This is Brian from Mechbladestudios, signing off.